Again, this is Sun, Sea, and Sustainability, and I will start by bringing them in and asking a series of questions, but I also want the audience interaction, and we've tried to do this as much as possible already today. You can interrupt. If I see a hand, I'll just call on you, and we can do that in between. As I say to my students, if it's a good interruption, I'm okay with it. So if you have a question as we're moving along, let's do that. And keep this going, and then we have one more session after this. So Sun, Sea, and Sustainability. We have three over. Luis Araujo from the European Travel Commission and Turismo de Portugal. Don Rodney, the Chief External Affairs Officer from the National Park Foundation. Drew Richardson, down on my far end, the Chief Executive from PADI, certified in 2000, no, sorry, that really dates me, 19 something, sorry. Yes, 2000 is what I meant. Last but not least, Monica Schiffelau, the Director of Strategic Alliances for Proco Reef. Welcome, all of you, and thank you. So to kick things off, because we're talking about that interaction, that sustainable tourism, that piece that brings people sometimes to cities, and cities, in this case, are really engaging. And in the role of cities and ocean, I'll ask all of you this first question. What is the role of tourism in connecting cities to the ocean in a good way? And this is a very broad, you can take in the direction you want from each of your directions. But as you've offered me this, how does tourism play a positive role, said another way, in connecting cities and ocean? We could start here and work our way down.
Well, thank you. So I think, in my conversations I've been having with folks, most people think of national parks in the US as those really majestic landscapes of Yellowstone, Yosemite. We also have more than 80 ocean and coastal national parks. And they they span from the Arctic to the Americas Samoa, from the Gulf of Mexico up to the North Atlantic. And from a tourism standpoint, these coastal parks really invite more than 90 million visitors every year. The economic impact on the coastal cities from a tourism standpoint is really significant. They generate about $7 billion in economic impact for the cities that surround these national parks. So we at the National Park Foundation, we're actually the official nonprofit partner of our National Park Service in the US. We really need to think about balancing tourism and the people's desires to play on our oceans and come visit our oceans with the ability to protect and conserve those oceans for future generations. And so we are thinking all the time about how to bring together public and private partners with local communities to make sure we're not loving these parks to death.
Yeah, and we hear that from the cities as well. Some cities get loved a bit too much, and we know the natural environment can as well. What's the view from the coral up, so to speak?
Okay, so I want to say that I part of a new venture, and we work with coral reef restoration. And we start this project because we see how unsustainable tourism is one of the problems that are affecting coral reefs. And when we think with this regenerative mindset, we have to think that there are problems, but there can be opportunities. So definitely, if the tourism is a problem, can be a solution. So we create this, the first product that we launched to market was the Coral Road. It's a regenerative tourism package, and it's developed by the local communities, the fishermen, and it's a green business for local communities because with this program, we prove that tourists are willing to pay for do that, and because the first part of the coral gardening is easy to do, so even children can do it, and it's a part of our educational program as well. And we achieved to have more than 12,000 corals in the nurseries, and it's a source of income for fisher. Then definitely, I think that the most important is when we are tourists, think about support these kind of initiatives. And something that I always say, that other important thing is to remember that the ocean starts at home, so everybody can take care of the reefs and other ecosystems from home. Remember to the 3 R's. So, because finally, all the pollution arrives to oceans, and this is a consequence of a linear economy. So, we can support as well regenerative economy and circular economy. Okay.
Yeah, and I was, years ago, the country of Palau had the Palau Pledge that was in your passport, and when you traveled there, they had you sign the Palau Pledge, and that was something that I think really started to make people think. And it's amazing to hear you say that they're engaging with the actual work on the coral. Turning to Portugal, you have mass tourism, and then you have sort of smaller places, and I was lucky to spend some work time down on Culatra and in Faro. How do you view this? How does the tourism make a positive impact and bring the cities into this work?
Well, good afternoon. I was going to ask, is there a negative impact? So let's start with the positive impact. We launched a strategy in 2017 for the development of tourism. And of course, sustainability is at the core of the strategy. And we've defined 10 main assets for Portugal in order to develop their product and also to promote as a nation. And the oceans, our ocean, is one of those 10 assets. So oceans is at the center of the strategy of tourism. What does this mean? This means that for us, the oceans are seen as a product, but also as a way to promote our country. We've developed, of course, we're talking about sand and sea, surfing, scuba diving. Just to give you an idea, 2/3 of the blue economy in Portugal comes from tourism. So this is the positive impact. It develops an economy, it drives attention to an asset, which is the oceans. But the question here is, and these positive effects has to be even bigger, and that's our commitment right now, is how do you change the entire value chain of tourism from supply to demand, drawing the attention to an asset which is oceans, and how do we take even more benefit from the oceans, not only as a product, but as a resource that sometimes we don't use. So pretty much I would say that the biggest challenge is how can tourism take even more advantage of tourism, not just like a product or an asset, but as a way of course, also to give back to our planet.
That's great. So going back underwater.
Well, thanks, Stuart. Our mission is to aggregate 1 billion ocean torchbearers to explore and care for the ocean. So we need a lot of friends and partners to do that, but that's our mission, and try to get a balance between humanity and the ocean. It's obvious we're all here because there's some imbalances that we're addressing. So specifically for tourism in cities, it's a highway, it's the conduit that connects cities with nature, but it also helps the local communities on the end of that highway. So to execute against our mission, our network is about 6,600 resorts and dive centers across the planet, and 29 million divers who are on that highway. And so we want them, when they arrive, to help support the local economy and the peoples, but also do good work in their area of interest. And what we're finding is a lot of tourists want to do that, and it opens their eyes to come back home to make responsible choices in their lifestyle, their choice of food, what they eat, how they, when you look at sustainability, they look at their own consumptions and make modifications. even what was served today at lunch was, I think, very responsible, local sourced vegetables and so on and so forth. So it works both ways. So we view that as the conduit between urban people and people in developing countries. We're in 182 countries, as I said, so which is great. And I think to connect the dots between humanity and the ocean to find that balance and just the choices we make and how we perform our lives.
Great. Coming back to Portugal, and something you said relates to a number of the panels earlier, and that's that capacity to the cities to do good versus being the problem, right? And I'm wondering from the strategy that you have, what are the ways that you then engage the cities to teach tourists, to teach citizens, and to bring them into the mix for the plan for Portugal?
Well, it has to do with clear and very transparent communication. Even the campaigns we do, it's not about promoting a country. It's saying we have our own way of living. We think it's the best one in the world. Of course, we all do. Each nationality in each country thinks, each destination. But we are here prepared to welcome everyone. We have a very strong purpose, welcome everyone, and respect the differences. This is what we do. If you're happy with that and you feel this is a good match with what you need or what you want, then you're welcome. And I think, it's not because I'm Portuguese and I'm in charge of this, but the best experience is meeting Portuguese and having a warm welcome for a Portuguese. When I say that it's really important to change this value chain of tourism, it goes not only from promotion, but from the supply side. So we also have to tell to the supply side that they have to change. They have to be more sustainable, more respectful, more responsible in order to attract those who recognize that value, who sometimes even pay more for that value, and spread the word that we are doing this, or this destination is doing this. So this is an example of the way to do the new tourism. We even launched a campaign very recently, which is called For a Better Planet, a Better Tourism. Our biggest concern is how do you spread this? And I think these kind of meetings are really important, but there's something that is hugely important, is how do we get the message that we are all discussing here to very small micro enterprises that are spread across the country and people that work in different sectors to recognize the importance, in this case, of the oceans, but something bigger, of sustainability as something that is fundamental for our future.
You mentioned something I was going to ask all of you, and it touches on entrepreneurship and partners. And I think that's something that, as we've talked about in all these panels, and in the line of work, I will say, that you are all in or relate to, seems to be really important. What's your view on the state of inspiring and funding and keeping entrepreneurs going that engage in tourism, and in tourism that's resilient and sustainable? And same thing on the partnership side, and you can answer both or you can just take one of them, but in each of your realms, you have to have something that's working, and especially if you're going to change the model, you've got to do something different. So I'll ask all of you that, and then I'll go to the audience, but what's your view, and how do you do that from the entrepreneurship side and from the partner side? Because you have to have both, I think, to do this right and to change the system. So I'll go to you first.
Yeah, I'll jump in. I'm going to talk a little bit more about the partnership side of it. One of the things that we're looking at is how do we create a 21st century visitor experience? So as people are coming to the communities, the local cities, and into our parks, how are we ensuring that they are having the best experience possible? So we've brought together private funders as well as companies, technology organizations to be able to develop some new technology for us to be able to do that in a way that, again, that provides that balance between allowing our national parks to be accessible to everybody, but also being able to manage how much people and balance that conservation and protection element that is part of the mission of the national
And what kind of
parks.
technology?
It is going to be an app-based technology, but it's just in development right
I
now.
did this, I didn't know.
Yes,
but,
it was. Yes, it would be on your phone.
Okay, okay, interesting.
Well, and for us, as I said, we are a new venture, so for us, the most important is always to think about replicability and impact. For example, this tourism package, what we do is to put the tourism value chain actors together, and this is why we create this business for the local communities. But we see that for the second part of coral gardening, it's not enough with tourism, and it's necessary diving skills. So we have a school, dive school that is partnered with us. And anyway, we develop, thanks to a partnership that we have with South Pole, we developed a new product that is a biodiversity credit. So because our project started thanks to 20 years of scientific research of our scientific director and co-founder. So we developed a methodology with 32 indicators, and we are working now on the testing this market because it's an emerging market. We are working to have a third-party certification. And in Colombia, our scientific director, he participated in an expertise table of the environmental ministry. And he is bringing our methodology for a compensatory policy, because there are policies for terrestrial ecosystems, but not for marine ones. So with this all scientific knowledge, we are trying to do that.
Interesting. Wow, that's quite an influence. Wow.
Well, I think the beauty of tourism is that anyone can be an entrepreneur and develop its own business. In fact, the Portuguese statistic says that 17% of our young people are entrepreneurs. When it comes to tourism, it's 22%. So it's much bigger, the percentage of people that develop their own business. And I'm not talking of people that have a rich father and buys them a hotel. I'm talking about someone that opens a restaurant, or a small Airbnb, or an experience in the territory. So in order to have this, the only way to have this is through innovation. We have a specific program. It's called Fostering Innovation in Tourism. It's 1.5 million euros a year. We work with more than 60 incubators and accelerators. So what we do is we launch calls and we ask them, can you please find startups or people that want to develop ideas regarding this? Ocean has been very present in most of them. And I'm happy to say that because of this, we've seen so many new ideas and so many business-related ideas that connects most of the time a very formal, because tourism is a very formal activity, although many think it's very focused on product and service. With these new experience and technology and digital and new kinds of products, that I think it's the perfect mix. So definitely entrepreneurship through innovation is one way to bring sustainability and the protection of the oceans to the
So just a quick follow-up. As you do those challenges and as you encourage innovation and entrepreneurship, do you see the cities or the country itself and the tourism boards hiring them and engaging those entrepreneurs and sort of bringing them in?
We do see many times, not only from the public side, so you see lots of municipalities or regions adjusting, hiring or buying those kinds of products, but also from the private side. And it's very interesting to see that the private sector is so open to engage with this kind of enterprises. It's a tough job, because when you were talking about partnerships, it's very difficult to have partnerships, especially nowadays. But you just have to find the occasions to put everyone together and just mix. And the mix is always better than at the beginning of the action.
Yeah, we're doing some work in Puerto Rico, and it's blue economy mixed with coral, all the way up to hotels and everything else. And so the partnerships piece is, as you were all speaking, really, really.
But there is a big challenge, huge challenge.
Yeah.
Is we have to simplify language and
Keep that in
communication.
mind, because I'm going to ask you some things
Great.
about things that are blocking your work.
Okay.
Let's hear from you.
Yeah, so Patty and our affiliate NGO, Patty Aware Foundation, have very specific conservation outcomes. So we committed to a mission and a vision that I've already referenced about aggregating a billion torchbearers to explore. That's important. That drives tourism, but also to care for the ocean, doing good works, but not just all over the map. So doing good works really in 3 pillars. One of those is people and community. So our network is really small specialty entrepreneurs in 180 some odd countries. So they're there. It's not really expatriates, local people. Those local markets are emerging, but they're also inviting in tourism. What kind of work are they doing? Well, we have a blueprint with 5 buckets, so it's what you might expect. It ties around sustainability and ocean conservation, specifically through marine protected areas, marine debris issues, the whole blue carbon aspects, coral restoration, and that's being discussed here quite a bit as we stand here, and then threatened and endangered marine species. And so all of those buckets are measurable. A tourist or a local can engage and work towards metrics that we've defined to chip away at improving those things. So as we do that, we have partners, and Block Ponds here, they're a great partner, particularly in the marine protected area. We have about 1,000 set aside. We have target 10,000 in the next few years. There's proven efficacy there. People like that. Local people like that as well, because that, in fact, defines sustainability. But it's also a draw for people to return to a location if it's a nice place to be, it's pristine or teeming with life. Other things are all citizen science based. You can go underwater and you can measure things in terms of database aggregation. That's marine debris, it goes to a global database. You can do good work, coral restoration. In Japan, they have a program in Okinawa where tourism comes to husbandry sites. You name your coral. Maybe your coral's name is Keiko-san and you love that coral and you bring it out to the reef and you come back the next year and you see how Keiko-san's doing. That's how it works, because people care. People generally care. I think all of us know there's issues, and sometimes those issues seem insurmountable, but everything can be mended with a determined action, but determined action that's hopeful, but it's constructive action. And that's what we're trying to offer through our network. But we're open for partners. We need partners as well if we're going to get the job done, because all the good people in this summit are not unlike all the other summits we go to. We're fragmented somehow. We're trying to figure out how to connect.
Correct.
So we're doing good works, but we're trying to scale. So what we can offer, we made a conscious decision. Take our network. Again, 29 million divers, all 182 countries, many cultures, adapted, 26 languages we transact in, and do something. While you still explore, you have to have fun. The joie de vivre is important. But do something meaningful, knowing that it makes a difference. So when you come back to your cities, you can start to think about your life choices, how you consume, how much petroleum you're using, what kind of food are you eating? Are you buying beans that were flown in? Are you getting your garbanzo beans and cooking them on your own stove? Soak them first. That makes a difference in terms of carbon and so on. Being more thoughtful. And what we're finding is the world needs hope, but they want to be able to do something constructively.
Yeah.
And we're trying to leverage our network while still traditionally people are scuba diving. They're doing it with a different purpose than we saw 10 years ago or so. So that's what we're doing, and we are open for constructive partnerships, collaborations that make sense to those ideals, and I would guess they resonate with everybody here. And who'd have thought that would be the main driver of scuba diving years ago? But it's a pretty complex network, and there's a lot of people engaged that want to do something constructive. So let's help them.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, I think we've been talking about this all day on this track, that just the idea that ocean practitioners and city practitioners from varying fields are sitting together. We could use more, but this is the point. You were moving us towards a very hopeful place, so I hope that I don't ruin the mood. But I do want to ask, what's the one big thing that's blocking you from you doing your work to really bring that idea of sea, sun, and sustainability together? Because it's often so extractive for tourism in many cases and places. What's the thing you're missing that you could, if you said right now to someone in the audience, could you bring me this? What is it that person could bring? And we might already know his answer a little bit, but we'll see. Maybe you have something more specific. But what's that thing that's missing? And if you waved a wand and they could come out of the audience, what is it you want?
Well, I don't know if I know the answer to that, because I'm not so sure anything's missing than a defined constructive action to collaborate in a new and different way. So there's no I don't feel friction, and friction on any level, but it's a collaboration of stakeholders, which is business, finance, technology, government, academia, etc., that the end user through citizen science can become a vehicle to do something bigger than themselves, knowing that it's rolling up. So that takes time, but it's not like we should do this. We are doing this, and we're doing it now. We want to do more. When I see slides, and I've seen them here, when I see the ocean is dying, if I was having a heart attack, I don't want to wait 2 years for somebody to come save me. If it well and truly is, then let's get busy. You know, I see these slides, and we're trying to say, everybody knows there's problems. Earth is dying. Okay, then let's save it today, because I'm not going to wait. You know, it's like, come on. So everybody here wants to do something. What's missing is, how do we defrag ourselves and bring those stakeholders together in a really cool way instead of talking about it all the time?
Yep.
Can I add something?
Yeah, just anybody jump in, and then we're going to go to the audience with
I
questions.
would say two things. The first thing is we are used to think on blocks, and this is a very good example.
Yeah.
You have put together 4 people that are experts in tourism. I would love to be in the panel with experts about health and to see how I can help as a tourism industry, help health together with the oceans and see how we can benefit all together. So I definitely agree with you. We are made and formatted to work in silos, and this is not the way to do things. I would say the second thing is we need simple information. We need simple data. We need science to come down to earth and spread the word, because we need that kind of information. I will give you a very simple example. We have 12 hotel schools, 3,000 students. I'm sure that if I go there and I do a question of what can we bring from the oceans to our gastronomy, they will say fish, and yes, we have the best fish in the world, and algae. And we have so much more. The problem is there is no knowledge that comes to these kind of people because it stays in the top of the pyramid. And second, there are no enterprises that recognize the value of what we can bring from the oceans. I will never say extract, but we can bring from the oceans and develop it in a different way.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes,
We've got a couple questions here, one right here, and then one here.
No, it's not working.
Switch, you go first.
Okay.
Now we want to get it recorded, sorry.
Okay. Hello. Thank you so much for a great discussion, panelists Drew, Lewis, and everyone. Taking on from what you have just said of simple, transparent, I want to ask you a very simple question about data. There is an aquarium in mid-England that, to have a zoo license from the government, it's mandatory that it does some cleaning up beach work. What data should it, and Drew, what would you be happy as a business to supply and easily supply on collecting, reducing pollution of our oceans, what you would be happy, what your businesses you're aware of, Lewis, and everyone else, what universal data metrics could you think of that would be applicable to Skegness and North Mid-England, to companies in the Caribbean or Portugal or wherever? What universal metrics would you suggest as the reducing pollution to our oceans?
Yep. So on marine debris specifically, there are criteria. There's a database you can collect. There are tick and flick forums to do that where people can make and we're happy to share that with you. We're a training company, membership company, so we have all kinds of consumer level training scenarios where people can learn more, become more informed about the sources of what they're finding, observing, and how to properly upcycle it, and so on. And there's many entrepreneurs at this conference that are doing that. So, and that's true in every one of our 5 blueprint buckets. There's measurability, and we're going on the 2030 thing as well, but we're trying to move along. So every single one of those, depending on what you're looking at, but if it's marine debris, we have people here from the Patty Ware Foundation too, be happy to send you links and whatever to share anything. We're open source, so happy to help you.
Great, thanks. Do we have the mic back for him?
Yeah, I'm Peter Neal, World Ocean Observatory. Did I miss anybody talking about the cruise industry? I live in Bar Harbor. I live in Blue Hill, Maine, outside Bar Harbor, which is in the shadow of either the first or second largest national park in the United States, most popular. I look at cities that are selling their souls to the cruise industry for the revenues. I look at reefs where you have tourism, which is essentially intruding upon the reefs. And I see national travel organizations promoting tourism as if it is the most important thing on their agenda. And yet none of you have mentioned it once.
Haven't mentioned what?
The cruise industry.
Oh, the cruise industry.
The elephant in the room.
We couldn't hear you.
Oh, you couldn't hear me.
Broke up. Okay, cruises. Who wants to take it first?
I'll take that. It's interesting because we have not engaged the cruise industry from a partnership standpoint for our national parks. And I actually, it's been a conversation because they certainly have an impact. I was in conversations with a gentleman from our Great Lakes and some of our parks there, and the cruise industry is just coming to that part of the world, and it's having tremendous impact. And so we want to be able to engage them in a lot of different ways, both as solutions, but also we also want to make sure that they have the ability to bring people to these wonderful places. So it's one of those really hard conversations, but we want to engage them, we want to partner with them, and we want to figure it out.
You want to.
I think.
But in the meantime.
In the
If I may say something.
meantime, we're engaging others. We're engaging a lot of other partners as well. So.
It's part of the value chain, and as a tourism destination, you cannot close your doors to a certain activity. What we have to do is work with them together and collectively, and we do. For instance, one of the biggest problems is a cruise ship that arrives in Lisbon, 4,000 people, 5,000 people, and they just go all to the same places. Why? Because the DMCs and most of the operators that work in the city take them to the same places. Or the packages that they sell inside the cruise ships, are always the same. So we have to work to them to say, listen, can we split? Can we say that you can have more things to see in the city? Can we work with you to promote other areas? So once again, I think it's a matter of facing the problems and addressing it with real solutions. Just to answer your question about data, because I was talking about information overall, but data is a very good subject because we always have a lot of data about our performance, the performance of a city, of a destination, of a hotel, of a travel agent. But how does a Norwegian behave in Portugal with spending or accumulating garbage, and how does he perform at his own at his home? Is it my problem that I'm not giving him the right tools to understand how he has to perform? So I always think that data is pretty much on the side of the supply, especially when we're talking about sustainability. And if we want to change the attitude of those who travel, we need to have more data about those who travel.
Great, thanks for adding that. Over here. Your name and your affiliation.
Yeah, sure. Can you? Yeah, my name's Josh Pelferman. I'm working with the World Bank, and I'm one of those environmental folk. I'm going to go with the gentleman here in the front row. I think it is important to have airports and cruise ships delivering kind of high spenders into your economy. The data that I'm aware of doesn't really need to be updated, and it claims that the tourism and hospitality industry usually has a waste output footprint about 5 to 10 times as high as the average citizen. It also has very deep pockets and the ability to easily ring-fence bed night revenue through special taxation to artificially prop up the economics of recycling, which right now is the least of all available evils in the plastic recycling market, to do something about it. So I think it's not a fair argument. I mean, I think that the cruise industry and the hospitality industry, I think, is inherently at odds with the sustainability cause. I would really challenge any other argument to that.
Yeah, and
Thanks.
I should have said when he asked the question this morning, it came up on some of the other panels. Indeed, some of the cities talked about their reduction in cruise lines, some of the parks, their reduction in contact and use of it. I do think that it's a very valid point. Certainly, I didn't bring it to this panel, a very holistic, equitable resilience lens does not shine well on local cruise activity, especially on island nations that I work on and places like that. So there is something that has to be fixed. I think back to what Drew said, there's a problem. There's numerous problems. This is a contributor. We have to figure out what the fix is.
Yeah, I think so. And look, they have a vested, that's not my sector, so we have with Royal Caribbean, we did some onboard training, but there's an ocean conservation aspect to that, but that's not really the point the gentleman from Maine, nice part of the world, by the way, brought up. And I think to stay in business, everybody wants to do that. So, and part of that should be market-driven, too. So informing end users to be asking for certain things in operations is another way to reverse engineer it. But it is nobody's trying to argue that that wouldn't be a concentrated problem, but I don't know that that's certainly not my panel or my panel expertise here, but it was never really brought up. I think noticeable by its absence, but it really is not part of what we came to talk about today. So I don't think there's a defense, but the cruise industry should have a representative here maybe to hear what they're thinking about, what's blocking them. That's a bit unfair not to have some representation there. We're just speaking sort of as citizens, you know.
It's a part of the tourism that
it is,
some places are engaged with. You said you looked like you were going to say something. No? You? No?
No.
Maybe me. No, for example, for these industries, as the Target 15 of the Global Biodiversity Framework, this kind of industry has to make their assessment for the impacts and dependencies biodiversity and natural capital. So I think that they have to do this kind of disclosure, this data, and make a pathway to become nature positive. So they must be here to talk about that.
That happened with debris. I think a lot of debris collection sort of was traced back at one time, and that actually improved practice because it wasn't being dumped overboard anymore. So you can hold to account sometimes through data collection if you can source where it's coming from.
Yeah, part of that is coming back to that. And one of the questions we don't have time for, especially around sustainability and tourism, is around biodiversity and habitat. It's an important aspect. Cruises, among many other ways of engaging in tourism, obviously have an effect on that. So before we run out of time, one small short question and response.
Okay, I'll try to make it short. I was curious about hubs. So we're trying to do outreach about marine protected areas in California. So is it site-based? Is it the airport racks, rental car agency? Is it the owners of the bait and tackle shops? What do you think is the most effective hub for tourism to get information out about sanctuaries, marine protected areas, ocean conservation?
Great question. Not a short one.
I'll
30
I'll
seconds
tackle,
for each of you.
30 seconds, I'll tackle that. I think as close to the marine protected area as you can be. I mean, what you want to do is capture people's hearts and minds as they're experiencing the beauty or the place that they're in. So as I would say, for me as a marketer, it's there and then 360 degrees around them. So surround them with the messaging as they are coming and going from that marine protected area.
Good answer, and I'm sorry we are out of time. We have to bring on the next panel. Many, many thanks to all of you. Could have gone on quite some time with this. We were just digging in, but really appreciate your time, and thanks for everyone for staying. We have a panel immediately following. So I want to bring up